Let's go back to the phones with, I think, Steve. Steve? Is the caller there?
Yes.
Steve, you're on.
My question's for the both of you. I'd like to know why it is that every time you hear about the Hell's Angels, it seems to be on something negative or something to do with wrongdoing.
Okay, I'm going to let George answer that. I mean, I know so little about the Hell's Angels that I had to ask George how come I associated them with, fast riding and maybe violence and fast living. That was my impression, but you are one.
The only thing I can tell you is it makes for good print. Some of the stuff is unjust. Some of the stuff is just. We've made mistakes and we'll make mistakes in the future, I'm sure, but it always makes good print to see the Hells Angels name on a headline.
Final question, I believe, here. What has disappointed you about this country and about its system?
The only thing that disappointed me is at one particular point in time, they tried to get my wife involved in something while I was in prison awaiting trial. They were making phone calls to her, trying to get her involved.
They?
Well, the FBI sent somebody. I'm assuming it was the FBI. I really don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't get any information on it, but they tried to get her involved, and I just felt that if they don't like me, that's fine, but my wife's never done anything to them. She never made any statements. They went over the boundaries a little bit on that area.
On the flip side, it was a jury within this system that found you innocent. So on the flip side, the system worked for you.
Well, the wheels of justice turn slow. In this case, they turn true. They don't always do that. There are some people that are incarcerated that are innocent, but this jury was intelligent. They listened, and I had a good lawyer. I had Barry Tarlow, who's probably one of the better attorneys in the country right now, and he just went in there and didn't pull any punches.
Okay. I'm glad that you stopped by to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I hope the rest of your life is uncomplicated and happy.
My co-defendant on my 1986-87 case was Danny Fabricant, and Danny Fabricant wasn't a Hell's Angel member at the time. He later became a Hell's Angel. He had a very short time as a Hell's Angel. Him and Sonny Barger seemed to have a problem, and he got kind of pushed out. But him and I were very close at one time. Spent a lot of time in San Fernando Valley, a lot of time in Ventura. And what Danny Fabricant was a jailhouse lawyer. And his antics in prison were just unheard of, and they were legendary. Danny seemed to have a real natural ability of reading the law, interpreting the law, and he would assist other inmates with their appeals and whatnot. And he has, I don't know how many, I'm going to say, I think 2 published opinions, which anybody that has a legal background out there will understand. It's case law. He himself set laws by his appeals. I'm not a legal scholar, so I'm not sure I'm explaining it properly. One of the things he did, he had an extension phone put into his cell. The phone company came out to put it in. This was either at Folsom or San Quentin. And of course, they refused. Another one of his antics was, I think he had 100 pizzas delivered to the prison. Of course, they never got in. Somebody got stuck with the bill. I don't know if it was the state of California. Certainly Danny Fabricant didn't pay for them. He's a jailhouse lawyer. He's not a lawyer that passed the bar. I would think that the bar would cringe if he tried to become a legitimate lawyer. He did a lot of antics over the years. I think one of his best antics that I remember, aside from the trial, and I'll get into that in a minute, was in the old days, you could fight a parking ticket. If your time ran out on a parking meter, the cop would come by, he'd cite you with a ticket, and then you could take it through the judicial system. You could actually fight it. And Danny and I got parking tickets on our bikes, and rather than pay the fine, Danny says, no, let me handle everything. I'm going to start doing motions. And, Danny would make up these ridiculous motions. And one example is on a parking ticket, we went through this whole process. Danny would not make a plea. And the judge said, Fabricant, you guys got to make a plea or I'm going to make a plea for you. And Danny cited some law why he wasn't able to make a plea. He was trying to get the judge to dismiss the parking tickets. And the judge said, well, Mr. Fabricant, you leave me an alternative. He goes, I'm going to plead both of you not guilty. And he goes, Your Honor, I want to amend that plea. Not guilty by reason of insanity, and I'm asking for a sanity hearing. And the judge threw up his hands. He goes, that's dismissed. And he let us walk out of the courtroom. I mean, these are some of the things he did. Another thing he would do is, I got a parking ticket one time, and he assisted me in fighting it. And we filed a discovery motion. And we wanted to know, it was a homicide detective wrote me a speeding ticket on the freeway. So one of the things, Danny and I got together and we started getting, colorful with what we wanted to do and theatrical. And we wanted to know how many tickets this homicide officer had written as a homicide detective. When was the last time the odometer on his vehicle had been calibrated? And, go on and on. We wanted all the radio transmissions from car to car, from car to station. We asked for the custodian of records to save all these things. And it becomes very costly for the county of Ventura at the time, or the state of California, depending on, where you're doing this. So these are some of the things Danny did. And he had a reputation, even within the lawyers. He sometimes would get invited to go into chambers by the judges, which would just blow the minds of the prosecutors. They just couldn't stand it. And so, some of the judges would stand up to these prosecutors and they'd say things, you brought a defense lawyer into your chambers by themselves. He's not even a lawyer. And then, Danny would say, well, Your Honor, I'd like to know how many times have you met with a prosecutor by yourself, which they meet with him all the time. So, Danny had a really great legal mind and he could think on his feet. Fabricant had a reputation in San Fernando Valley as he stole more bikes than anybody in San Fernando Valley. He was a bike thief for a while. That's what he did. There are some other people that became, prominent businessmen that initially started out. I won't even mention their names, but, they knew who they are, and the old timers know who they are as well. They wound up with big companies. And but Danny was a car, a car as well as a motorcycle thief. And anybody that remembers the show, I'm going to time myself here, or age myself. I don't know what the proper term is. Adam 12. One of the shows, Adam 12, has a guy that comes in and asks can I take a test drive? Well, no, we don't let the Mustang Cobras or whatever they're called out for test drive, but you can sit in it and start it. And Danny's the guy that they patterned an Adam 12 after. He got in the car, started it, put it in gear, and went out the front plate glass window, and the chase was on. Danny was so proficient in stealing cars that they started asking him, can you get around this system? Can you get around that system? And the one that stands out to me, it was, I want to say it might have been a Corvette. The company came to him, somebody came to him, and they said, there's no way you can steal this car. And Danny, they were so pissed off at him. Danny took a like a handsaw and cut a hole in the hood and did something inside there and stole it. And they were so mad at him. That was the last time they asked him to test a security system for him. He was just cavalier. He didn't give a shit. And his attitude was, well, you told me I couldn't steal it. I did steal it. And, he got paid, but he also broke his relationship with him. But, one of the antiques Danny did, first of all, Barry Tarlow tried to sever Danny and myself from each other because Danny had a horrendous record. And we were going to put on, and I don't know the legal term for you lawyers watching or listening out there, we're going to put on bad acts. And I had no bad acts. I had no criminal record. I had nobody that would come in and testify that I did this or did that to him. I'm sure it's not that way anymore, but this was in 1985. So we didn't want Danny to brush against us. It was an appeal move. We knew no way we were going to sever, but it was just an appeal move. Danny understood it. Danny and I discussed it. And Tarlow said, this guy's smart enough to know that if we win, he wins. Danny could have not won that case on his own because of his record and his personality. One of the things that the Judge Trevisan was so irate. Now, Judge Trevisan was trying to do a really good job because President Reagan had just appointed him from the California bench to a federal bench. So this was his first case, his first big case, and he wanted to make an impression. And he would not give Danny any respect. He would not give Danny any air. So Danny humiliated him by taking toilet paper, Scotch taping them together, and Danny, in the record on my case and Danny's case in 1985, is a motion written on toilet paper. And it was submitted to the judge, and the judge, man, he just reamed Danny in the courtroom. He said, don't you dare. And Danny didn't give a shit. Danny stood up, in his red jumpsuit, and Danny didn't wear, if I recall correctly, Danny wore a red jumpsuit through the whole trial. I wore what I wore, my club stuff, and I remember Danny wore a red jumpsuit. That was the people that were locked up in the federal system. And the judge just said, I will not allow this. And Danny fabricated said, you got no control over it. I do what I want. He goes, I represent myself now. And he would get a lawyer, and then he would try to bump him off. And the judge wouldn't allow him. And, Danny would come up with all this fantastic stuff. But Danny finally got a lawyer, and Danny was satisfied with him. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he added some stuff to the trial, and Barry was impressed with him. So, people talk trash about public defenders. The federal public defenders, those guys know what they're doing. And I'll tell you, just like in a federal death penalty case, they may know more than an experienced lawyer.
We're back with George Christie. If you followed the newspapers any in the last 8 months, you know that he was president of the Ventura County chapter, still is president of the Ventura County chapter of the Hells Angels, arrested way back in September for conspiring to murder an inmate, a federal inmate, excuse me, was acquitted, was found totally not guilty by a jury last week. Is that right?
Well, it's been about 3 weeks now.
3 weeks? Why does it seem like it was just
seems like just
recently?
yesterday,
To me, right? Might have seemed like a long time ago to you. During the break, we were chatting about, I'd like you to be, well, we've got callers, don't we, Lori? Excuse me, I'm chatting away with you, and there are people that want to talk to you. Better go to the phones, okay? I'll chat with you in a little bit. Greg, your comment or your question for George. Is the caller there? Greg? Hello. I think we're having some phone problems. You want to turn your television set down a bit?
Yeah, I did. I don't even have it on.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, your question or your comment?
Yeah. My question, it's both a question and a comment for George. I'm an independent biker myself, and an American veteran on top of that. Somebody that's fought for our country and proud of America, as a whole. But the question is to get away from, say, clubs in general, but all bikers. I do a lot of riding, and I ride for a lot of different reasons, and sometimes they have runs, which, bike runs and stuff for MDA, muscular dystrophy. And apparently the runs down in San Diego are being hassled all the time by ATF, DEA, special tactics forces,
and FBI and everybody. Maybe George can kind of outline why this is always being, why the bikers that are wearing black leathers and riding Harley Davidson are always being harassed.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Thank you for calling.
Well, Greg, it's funny you mentioned San Diego because that's one of the worst areas for any motorcyclist, whether you're an independent rider or a club member. I don't know why law enforcement is so bad down there. It's virtually impossible to go into San Diego and not be pulled over and harassed. I know last year we went down, there was about 6 or 7 of us to go to a benefit. And as soon as we got into the town where this benefit was being held, they just swooped on us. And the FBI was there, ATF, Bud Johnson, who was a federal marshal, was there, and they took pictures, ID'd us, had us take our shirts off so they could photograph our tattoos and whatnot. I just think that San Diego has always had that particular personality with their law enforcement, and I think it's something you're just going to have to deal with when you decide to go down there.
Okay, our lines are full, so let's go back to the phones right now. Sue, are you there? Is Sue there?
This is Bill. I took over for Sue.
You took over for Sue. Okay.
Okay. I would like to ask him, when he dresses to stand out and he dresses to intimidate, why he has to complain then when he's singled out.
Want to repeat that again? Why he dresses to intimidate? Okay, I guess that's what it was.
And he's also dressed to stand out from the crowd, and now he's complaining because he's singled out.
Okay, Mr. Christie.
Well, first of all, as far as intimidation, I'm 150 pounds, 5'8". I've got a pair of white tennis shoes on. If you find me intimidating, I don't know what to tell you. As far as
calling
standing
attention,
out, I think that this country, you're supposed to be able to do and say whatever you want and dress like you want. And the reason I'm complaining about it is because I don't think that it's right. And if you feel that actions like that by law enforcement is right, maybe you're in the wrong country. I don't know what else to tell you, pal.